I had a revelation just now, and I was thinking about when it comes to questioning God's will and how His will comes to pass. And I was just thinking about like God's mercy, right? And even how Jesus was born. He was born in a manger, right? He came in a humble, lowly form, and people didn't recognize him as God because they expected a great king to come rushing into battle, slaughtering their enemies, and taking hold of this world by force. And they couldn't comprehend, many people, I think even to this day, still can't comprehend that God is not someone who that although he has the authority and power to do whatever he pleases, and it would be completely just and right if he were to assert his authority, but I think something that we don't always understand, either I think we take for granted, or we so I think sometimes we take for granted that mercy is not a hindrance to God's power and authority. It's actually an extension to his power and authority. But I think there's two groups of people. When we see the mercy of God, we either think that our God cannot be that God if he's that merciful. And I've seen this in different theological groups and standpoints where it's like, if God is as merciful as some claim to be, then he cannot be as sovereign as he is, because some people believe that God will allow, God would not allow anything outside of his will because he's sovereign. But I think there is something more to that. Like, the idea of God's mercy is not what some people would think as a weakness, something that hinders his sovereignty and his power and authority. I think it's actually an extension of it, because sometimes we think like, if God were to level himself and come down to earth to our level and humble himself and come to a lowly position where he shows us so much mercy and grace, we can't comprehend it. Some people would think that that's actually a hindrance, and think that can't be our God, because our God would demonstrate his power and authority. But isn't that the greatest power? The power of love, to humble yourself and show yourself lowly and merciful, not because you have to, but because you choose to. And I think some people don't understand that God has made an active choice to endure the sins of mankind, to show that he loves you. And it's not because he lacks the power to do otherwise, but it's because he chooses to demonstrate his love. And that does not demonstrate his weakness. This is not a false God who's unable to bring judgment on the earth. He's fully capable of doing that. And we all have deserved God's wrath through our weakness and sin, but irregardless, he loves us so much that he came to demonstrate his mercy and lowliness through his ministry and service and humbling himself before others. And then he died on the cross to make us right with him by faith. So this was all an act of choice that he made to come to the earth, bear the sins of mankind, which, was a decision that brought him emotional and great physical pain, but he chose to do it. And that's not weakness. Some people would look on that and say that's weakness. That's not weakness, that's power, because he had the absolute power and authority to do otherwise, and yet he chose this for us. And that's true power right there. Not physical, not what we can understand in the physical, but what can definitely be understood in the spiritual. So I just wanted to share that, and I think I hope it encourages. Love to know what you think. Anyways, thank you for listening, and goodbye. God bless.